Senior Bowl is underway, John, and there are some good players in Mobile.
You ever been to Mobile, Alabama?
No, never been to Mobile. How many times you been in the Senior Bowl?
A couple.
As an NFL employee, Eagles polo shirt.
Yeah, cold.
I saw today. There's a lot of weather. They're moving things indoors, outdoors, whatever. We're here to talk about DeVonta Smith, superstar Alabama receiver. Before we do that, we would love for you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and like this video.
Also subscribe to our podcast. Would love that as well. Like the video.
Podcast.
I got a question for. I got a question for you, guy.
Okay.
Have you ever refused to get on a scale because you were too skinny? and you did not want to see a number that was too low?
Never. I've wanted to not take my shirt off in gym class, but I've never not wanted to get on a scale because I was too skinny. That's never.
Have you got onto a scale over quarantine times?
I have not. No.
Yeah.
Have you?
I'd say I did it today, and it was not bad, not great. I have never, though, once got onto a scale worried that it wasn't going to be low enough. And when I saw the story of the Heisman Trophy winner refusing to get on a scale clearly because he doesn't want to see a number in the 168 or whatever. You could argue even like 171, whatever it would just be very low, right? We talked a lot about Ruggs last year, who I think last year's draft, people just viewed him as the small, fast guy, weighed 188 pounds, which I think NFL standards still pretty small. I text my buddies with the Eagles. I said, what was Deshaun when he was drafted? And they said, I remember when he first got here, it was like 168, 169. But it wasn't because of talent. I mean, his talent, like DeVonta Smith, he dominated college football, right? Dominated. He did go in the second round. This guy is
also had some character flags.
But that's the reason. Like if Deshaun had been like DeVonta Smith off the field in college, he would have gone in the top 20, but that was well before you ever took a small guy like John Ross went 8, which still is kind of crazy. And this guy's better than was better than Deshaun in college, and Deshaun was elite and clearly way better than John Ross, but he is tiny. And he refused to get on a scale because of the way, because he was too small.
Because his agent knows how it's going to look.
Yeah.
Even though
I think he probably has heard it too. Like wouldn't you be shocked? Like he has been around the Waddles, all these guys in college. Like they do get on scales.
Have you seen
Alabama.
John Mechie?
Is he jacked up?
John Mechie's jacked.
Yeah. But don't you think over like his
Julio
3 years,
comes through?
Don't you think those times when he's just working out with his offensive group, right? Waddle, Ruggs, Judy, Najee, all these guys, that a huge point of emphasis is to keep DeVonta Smith, DeVonta Speed, but try to just put on a little more muscle. Like he's just skinny relative to those guys.
Yeah. Guys go there. It's certainly there's a natural element you're just going to have to accept. Now, Brian Flores, who's coaching him, seems like he thinks maybe you should accept it. Look at this guy. I'm reading a tweet from Eric Edholm. This is what Brian Flores said. Look, this guy's a very, very good player. If you're a good player, you can make whatever you want about a guy's size. Good players are good players. He said he made the biggest plays in the biggest games. Quote, you can nitpick all day. He will get nitpicked, but at the end of the day, someone's going to be sitting there going, I could have DeVonta Smith or I could pass on DeVonta Smith. And when I watch the tape, the guy makes plays because he runs away from everybody. So how much is it really? I mean, it's going to hurt him because, maybe he could be a top 5 pick if he looked like Julio, but that's most guys.
If he was 190 pounds, let's say 20 pounds heavier than I think people think he is, and I know people that have gone into Alabama that said it's probably like 166 to 168, and we've looked at him. He's just linear. He's skinny.
And Alabama is not a place where people say, "Well, what we'll do is we'll get him into the NFL and get him into a real program, and we'll put some meat on him."
That has never been said once. Like they're just not feeding him enough. It's like, God, can they stop feeding him? There is validity to what Brian Flores is saying. There's also, I give the kid a lot of credit. Of every single human being at this Senior Bowl, he's the last one that needs to be there. He does not need to be there. He can just wait for the pro days. It's just, to me, it shows he's a high-level guy. Mac Jones is there too. Like the Bama guys recently have just been going to this. And I think a lot of the SEC guys, because just, if you're a high-character guy, you don't even need to play. Just get around Brian Flores. Like honestly, it's a good move. What team's he on? He's not playing in the game, but every day he gets to be around Brian Flores. And you get this quote that, look, I don't think Brian Flores is just blowing smoke. What he said is true, right? You watch DeVonta Smith play. Ohio State, which I'd have to dive into like the numbers and text around. I'd imagine of the 11 guys that started in the national championship game, several are going to be drafted over the next, some of these guys are underclassmen, but are going to be drafted in the top 3 or 4 rounds. And every guy on that defense will at minimum be a NFL camp. And I'd say most of them will be practice squad guys at minimum. And he eviscerated them, right? And he'd been doing it all year long, but like that game was just like, holy shit. So the conversation's real. If you're in the 160 pounds, I know people listening haven't had the opportunity to do this, but I've been at practices when I worked in the league. I've gone to a ton of games, staying on the sideline next to you at Raider games when these teams would come out. And depending on the team, some are bigger than others. They're all big. And I'll never forget some of those Marvin Lewis Bengals teams, those Denver Bronco teams. You're just looking at the Chiefs when Andy first got, they are fucking massive on defense. And you're going to run a screen for them. Just the outside linebacker might hit you, right? Like it is hard to avoid, even in a league that's quote unquote softer than the Steve Young, Brett Favre days. I think an older guy would be like, God, you're young. I mean, what about the Stabler days? Like those days now, we're 50 years away from those, just the 90s, even the 2000s. I do think there is valid risk in just discuss. Like this is a talking point.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think it's fair.
But I also think this is to your point, not to take this in a different direction, but I think it makes so much sense for any player to go to the Senior Bowl unless they're the consensus number 1 pick, because we see it repeatedly. The teams that coach the Senior Bowl draft players. Teams don't get that much time with you. They don't get that much information on you. They get 15-minute interviews and then maybe another interview and maybe you get a visit. Give them a chance to fall in love with you. I mean, I don't know if you saw when Phillip Rivers retired what Wade Phillips tweeted, but basically he made it very clear. Oh, he blocked you. Based on what?
I don't know. I always followed him. I don't even think I talk shit about it. I don't know.
He once liked one of my tweets, so I guess we're in different standing with Wade. But
at Son of Bum, is that what it is?
Yeah. He posted he was trying to sell his house a few years ago, and I posted photos of it.
In your price range?
No. But he basically said, like, we coached Phillip in the Senior Bowl when I was in San Diego, and we fell in love with him. And it once you read that, you go, okay, now I understand. You don't need to know anything else to know why they traded for him. So, I mean, that's a good move by DeVonta. And I do think he does have a lot going in terms of the guy. Just watch him talk at the Heisman. Like, I do think someone's going to go, this guy is all business.
Guy, he has 1 knock, kind of 2 knocks. And it's weird to say the second one's a knock because he is fast. When you are that small, Deshaun was faster. Like, Deshaun was a 4.3 guy and really explosive. This guy is going to run like 4.45, which me, you, and most NFL players is really fast. I do think like part of what made Ruggs special, he was 4.28 and he was 1.90. So there is just like some guys are outliers. You and I have stood next to Tim Lincecum, met the guy. He's tiny and in his peak was throwing 98. Like this guy might just be a great player and dominate the NFL level at 170. I think the pushback from most NFL lifers would be like, you got to be careful with the outliers. Like there is this is not risk adverse. Like there's a lot of risk involved. Yeah. I've been saying for a long time and texted a couple of my buddies in the SEC, they believe that Jalen Waddle will go above DeVonta Smith.
And just Jamar Chase too?
And Jamar Chase is probably going to go top 5 maybe. I mean, unless he runs like 4.8, I think he's fast. But I just think most people would be like, yeah, DeVonta Smith's the best wide receiver on Alabama in NFL draft rooms. I think it's fair to speculate that probably a majority of them will have Waddle above them. Now, that might mean like they have Waddle as a top 10 pick and DeVonta as a top 18 pick. So it's not like they think the one guy sucks, but wouldn't you imagine the casual fan that just watched a couple playoff games would be like, that guy's the best wide receiver in the country.
But it also might mean if he is an outlier, which I would say this about outliers, you usually don't find out they're outliers until they're in the NFL. Predicting the outlier is the hard part.
Yeah.
Right? You didn't know Tom Brady was the outlier.
But he's an outlier right away with the weight.
You know he'll need to become an outlier. Right. But he might also be value if you're right about that.
What if
depending
I
on
told
where
you
he
the
goes.
Niners took him at 12?
I wouldn't love that pick.
Yeah. What if I told you like the Colts took him at 21?
I would like that pick.
Yeah.
Stafford's going to need him.
Yeah. With
Help that deep ball accuracy.
Can we trade our first rounder, but also keep the first rounder? Is that possible?
There's a mock draft for that, yes.